What's going on, guys? Just give me a second. I am making sure that I have a good picture here and that my connection's good here before I start things up. And yep, looks like we're good to go. All right, get this going right here. And what's going on, you guys? So just back today to do another video, and I'm going to talk today about 5 foods that I've been using over about the past like 12 months or so, maybe a little bit longer, but they really helped me to build 15 pounds of muscle in that time. And I wanted to do this because that's always kind of been my thing with training, right? I've always wanted to be strong. I wanted to be, muscular. I wanted to be powerful. I wanted to be athletic. And back in the day, like when I was in my 30s, I had so many like injuries and nagging aches and pains. I was just like constantly beat up from the workouts that I was doing. And, I remember just like hurting all the time. And that was kind of the thing that I got. And I never really was getting the results that I wanted from my training and nutrition and all that. So, now it's like there's a lot that's talked about, when it comes to building muscle and all that. And it's, all over YouTube, all over like, the men's fitness magazines and all this kind of stuff. But, when you get into your 30s, your 40s, your 50s and beyond, we have to do things differently. And there's a lot of this kind of idea that just because we're older, just because we're in our 40s or our 50s or whatever, we're not able to build muscle anymore. And so, we have to just kind of stick to doing things like with light weight, lots of repetition, do more cardio, and avoid things like, lifting anything that's remotely heavy, avoid running. And, it's just like, I wanted to share this because, this isn't a training thing, but building muscle in your 40s and beyond is something that is definitely possible, but we just have to kind of dial in our approach a lot more specifically, than we did like when we were younger. When you're younger, your hormones are peaking up, you recover faster, you could get away with doing a lot of things or a lot of other things wrong, eating the wrong foods and all that kind of stuff. You have more kind of flexibility and can get away with that, but it kind of catches up to you when you get, in your 30s and 40s and beyond. So just want to talk a little bit about that today and, share with you kind of 5 foods that I've been using. So, they're like 5 more like staples that I've been using. And the big thing with it as well is that I'm really big on flexibility, right? I don't like dogmatic approaches when it comes to training, when it comes to nutrition, because, I've been there and done that, and that's how I used to program workouts and nutrition for my clients. And what I found, both like with myself and with clients, and I've been doing this for like almost 20 years now, is that while, I could put together the best kind of workouts and diet programs that are super effective, but it didn't matter if my clients couldn't stick with them. And a lot of times the things that we try to do to get stronger, to get leaner, to build muscle, to stay, pain-free and get in the shape that we want to be in, the things that we're trying to do to get there are things that we can't sustain, or they just might be like the right things for us, or we might not enjoy doing them. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, at least in my mind, to try to tell you, hey, you need to only eat this, or you need to train this way, you need to do this and not do that if that doesn't work for you, or if you can't sustain it, right? So it's all about like sustainability. So it's, what I'm going to talk about and share with you here with the 5 foods. I think that for a lot of you watching, these will be things that you could probably, see yourself doing. There's a lot of flexibility that goes into this, but there's also enough structure to it that will allow you, if you're struggling to build muscle, if you're struggling to get stronger, if you're not as lean as you'd like, or just not in the shape that you want to be in, if you struggle sticking to a nutrition plan, for more than a couple weeks or a couple months, or you have, trouble with cravings, overeating, all these kind of things, this will definitely help you out. So, in case you don't know who I am, if you're just watching for the first time, just kind of jumped in, my name's Kevin Yates, and I help people over 40 build muscle, get stronger, get leaner, be more athletic, and become more resistant to pain and injuries. And that's basically what I've been doing for almost 20 years now. So today I'm just kind of shifting gears a little because I tend to post a lot of things about training, but I don't talk a lot about this side of things with the nutrition, and especially over the last kind of 12 months or so, that I've really just kind of found that with more flexibility in my nutrition program, one, I can be more consistent, I can sustain what I'm doing, and I got way better results. So 15 pounds of muscle in about the last year, a little maybe over that, is, at least for me, pretty damn outstanding considering I'm going to be 49 this year. And these are like results that I never was able to get in my 30s or my 20s for that matter. So that's what I want to share with you today. So, if this is something that you struggle with, watch this. I encourage you, watch this all the way to the end. Try some of these foods, or try all of them, or whatever works for you. But, if you're really struggling and you really need help, then feel free to message me directly if you want. So I'm always available to try to help you out as best I can with that. So we are about 5 minutes after 12, so I'm going to get going here. I just wanted to give a few minutes for people to jump on in and everything. And I see here I've got Lee. Lee, what's going on? Welcome. Thanks for joining. And Lonnie, what's happening, Lonnie? All right, you guys, so I'm going to talk about 5 foods that have helped me build 15 pounds of muscle over really the last 12 months or so. So I'm going to share this with you, and use this as you see fit. If these are things that you go, man, I don't like that, that's not going to work for me, I hate that stuff, don't do it. But maybe it'll spark also some ideas for you that you can kind of modify and adapt to fit what works for you. Bottom line, do what works for you. Don't worry about reading articles and books and taking like diet approaches that don't work for you, because if you can't sustain it over the long term, it doesn't make any sense to do it, right? All right, so let's get right into it. So 5 foods. So number 1, and I'll kind of show you guys a little bit as I go through, because I don't like just kind of standing doing a big lecture. That's why I'm in the kitchen, so I can kind of show you guys some stuff. But there's, when we talk about like building muscle, and typically you'll hear like kind of the bodybuilding approaches, right? Eating a lot of like rice and potatoes and oats and fresh fruits and all that. And that's all cool and everything. But, like for me, doing like steamed rice all the time, like I like it, but it's so plain, right? And it gets kind of boring. So some things that I experimented was like varying up, like having more variety of carbohydrates. So carbohydrates definitely are an important thing. I know that that's something that freaks a lot of people out, especially if you struggle with like body fat. If you're not getting as lean as you want, there's that kind of fear that, oh my God, I got to go low carb, I shouldn't eat carbohydrates. And, while for some people it could be like magic and work like wonderful for them, I've seen so many other people who struggle with it, who feel like crap when they go low carb or when they do it for too long. Their energy plummets, they're irritable, they're starving, they're hungry, they're weak, their performance goes down the tank, their sex drive drops, like nothing good happens for them. So again, it's important to understand there's no one size fits all for everybody. And carbohydrates are a key, especially if you're trying to build muscle and strength. Even if you're trying to lose body fat, you've got to have some carbohydrates in your diet. Now, the more important is kind of the types that we consume, right? But one of the things, going back to like the rice that I was talking about, was incorporating more like noodles, right? So it's not just like pastas and things like that, but there's more, because I get bored of that stuff too, but more like noodles. I'll show you some that I've got here. I should have had them out already, but we got like a bunch. We like stack our whole cupboard with these things, but anything like chow mein noodles, I don't know if that comes in, but we got like chow mein noodles. What you're looking at like nutritionally, they're about the equivalent as like pasta would be from a nutrition standpoint. You got like, I don't know if these are like lo mein noodles. It's all written in Chinese and I can't read Chinese, but they're like just a little bit bigger. So we got like real thin chow mein ones. I think these are lo mein. We get like udon noodles sometimes. Cool thing about it is that you can, you can cook those up, and, we'll like cook them up with some oil and everything like that to add a little bit of fat to it. I'll talk about that too, because fat is like not the big, health hazard that everybody thinks it is, especially if you're trying to build muscle. I'm going to tell you exactly why. If you're not eating enough fat, you're never going to make the gains that you want. You will continue to struggle. It's hugely important. But just getting back to that, like varying some of that stuff up, like what we'll do You know, my girlfriend Cheryl, she's really a whiz with this stuff. She's really good at like, you know, chopping up a lot of different veggies that she'll put in there. We'll put like carrots in there, onions in there, green onions in there. We'll mix up like egg in there. You know, we'll put all kinds of different garlic and whatnot in there and really just kind of mix it all up. And, you know, that's an easy way to just, you know, make it a little bit more quote unquote healthy. But that's just kind of one of the things I've been doing a lot more with, not just rice, but noodles. On the rice side of things, we've even made like, we do like some fried rice, you know, and again, it's a lot different than like ordering, you know, at the Chinese restaurants where they just pack it with like all kinds of oils and kinds of junk and stuff. But this is like just left. We have this whole tub filled up, but you know, we're just making like rice in there, carrots, and we'll put like peas in there, green onions, all that stuff that I talked about, and just making it into like rice. Add some soy sauce and things like that in there, and really works really well. So you can get creative with your carbohydrates. So, you know, don't be afraid to put carbs in your diet. I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit, but just really varying that up, right? Use some variety, look up some recipes. We're always like looking for recipes that, you know, we'll test them out and then we'll tweak them, kind of put our own spins on things like that. But again, you know, it's important to have, if you're like me, like a good variety. I don't like having to have the same thing all the time because it gets very boring for me. And I lose motivation, and you know, when we lose motivation, we don't want to really do things very long. All right. So, and yes, Cheryl, I'm talking about you, my chef here. So number 2, you guys, we're going to talk about like veggies in the dishes. Now, if you're anything like me, you probably like don't really care for vegetables unless it's you, Cheryl. I know you love veggies. Which is a great compliment to me because I really don't like them. Like, I'm never going to be, and I never was, the type of person who's going to follow that typical muscle building diet, right? Where, you know, you have like your steamed veggies on the side with your lean proteins and all that. You know, I just can't get into eating that stuff that way. It's just too bland and boring for me, and I don't like things like cheeses and sauces and stuff on that too much. You know, so a lot of things that we do is like I just talked about, like, we chop them up and mix them in our dishes. And it's like, for me at least, the easiest way to get veggies in there. And veggies are great, right? Because yes, there's a lot of health benefits, micronutrients we get antioxidants and all those things that we need. But again, you know, it's not always the easiest thing to do if you don't really care for them, or you're like me and you just want more variety with it. So, you know, throwing veggies in like, you know, rices and noodles and even pasta dishes, you know, making like pasta sauce and, you know, throwing down some zucchini, some onions, some bell pepper, mushrooms, things like that in there work really, really well. Even like fajitas, you know, making like chicken fajitas and throwing in bell pepper and onion and all that stuff, like, you know, doing that. So again, it goes with like getting creative with things, but also, you know, and also using a variety and all that stuff. So that's 2. So the third thing, I talked about this earlier, and that had to do with fat, right? Getting enough fat. So everybody's like got this fear of eating fat these days, you know, unless of course, you know, you're like completely on the other end where, you know, Atkins years ago came out and said, oh, you know, well, we need to go low carb and we need to eat, you know, all this kind of fat and protein, that people just went nuts on this stuff. So, you know, here's the thing, like the important thing when it comes to building muscle, right? This is huge because building muscle really isn't about what we're taught. We're taught it's all about like, you know, how many calories you eat and having to eat like a pound of protein or a gram of protein per pound of body weight. And it's all about like getting your macros right. And yeah, that stuff matters to a degree, but building muscle isn't all about that. It's really a hormonal process that happens, right? So if we are not able to produce the hormones that we need to build muscle, then we're not going to build it, right? So that's where fats come in, because fats actually help your body to produce the hormones that you need to build muscle. You know, and going more into this kind of stuff, you know, we have, you know, of course, unsaturated and saturated fats, right? Everybody's freaked out to eat anything saturated. People don't want to eat red meat anymore. You know, people are just fearing saturated fat all over the place, you know, and it's a big myth. And there was some research done years ago. It was Sally Fallon and Mary Enig. I'm trying to remember the book they wrote on it. But basically, there was a 70-year study where they looked at just overall the American diet, right? Our typical diet. And this went all the way back to like the 50s or 40s, and went all the way for like 70 years. And, we're looking at the difference between, how most people were, most Americans were back then, right? There wasn't the alarming rates of obesity and heart disease and strokes and cancers that we have now. And so what they took a look at what changed in the diet, right? So we see now, like what, 1 in every 3 people are considered obese, and it's going to be like 1 out of every 2 within the next something like 15 years. It's crazy, right? So they looked at it, and what they found was that you would think, like, to see that much obesity, if fat was the big culprit, in saturated fat particularly, you would expect to see a big increase in the intake of that over the years. But what they found was that was mostly unchanged. I think it was like something like a 1% increase, which was very, very minimal. Cholesterol intake didn't change very much at all. What they found was when they looked at the consumption of like sugar, and they looked at like processed foods and margarines and things like that, there was if I got the number right, and I'm pretty sure I do, it was a 400% increase in that period of time. So again, case in point, right? Saturated fat's not the big devil that we have been led to believe that it is, which is why it's also important to educate yourself. Always educate yourself. Do not blindly accept, what anybody else tells you without looking into it yourself. If you look into books like The Metabolic Typing Diet, and you study research done by Weston A. Price, who traveled all around the world, and he wanted to know what the diets look like of these third world populations who had very little, if any, incidence of obesity and heart attacks and strokes and all these things that are common in our civilized, society of today. What was interesting is that when he looked at like the diets, there was all kinds of different diets that these different populations of people had been using. So he had like Eskimo tribes who were eating up to 80% of their diet was fat, and most of it was saturated fat, and yet they were some of the healthiest people that he'd ever seen, right? He looked at populations of like Swiss people who were living largely on milk and cheeses and breads, right? All this stuff that we're told is going to kill us if we eat it, but they were some of the strongest, most healthy, and had like vitality and longevity. He looked at populations. There was like Indian tribes who ate like 70% of their diet from carbohydrates. So it's kind of crazy, right? You think of that, and a lot of that stuff is the things that we're told not to do, and yet you can see that there's other populations outside of here that we're not really told about who eat like this and are some of the strongest, most vital, and healthiest people around, who don't have the same health issues that are common, in our kind of society nowadays. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of share that a little bit. So real quick, some of the benefits. What we never hear about are benefits of saturated fat. Some of the benefits. Saturated fats actually will protect your liver from toxins. It's a protector. Saturated fats are more stable at high heat. So if you're cooking, one of the worst fats to cook with is like an unsaturated fat, because they tend to go rancid once they get above like 180, 200 degrees. They go rancid, and then all you get is like free radicals, which damage the whole kind of circulatory system and the blood vessels, which that can start to increase cholesterol and do a lot more damage, right? So again, being careful about, what we're reading about, what we consider healthy, and always educating yourself about, really doing your best to do that, right? And what else? Saturated fats are also needed to get calcium to absorb better into the bones as well. So bone density, I know, is a big thing as we get older, because if we're not, training right, if we're not eating right, bone density tends to decrease. But again, there are ways that we can help to offset that or minimize that. So just kind of, a little something there. All right, let's see what we got. I'm checking in. If you guys are just joining in, welcome. I'm going to check for questions here. I'm on a bit of a delay down here. So what I'm seeing here on my feedback, it might be 30 seconds to a minute after. So if you guys type in questions or comments and I'm not replying to them, just give me a minute so I can see them come up here. Larry, what's going on? Thanks for joining. Sean, what's happening? Dude, long time, Sean. How you doing, man? And Jeff, what's going on? Lindsay, what's happening? Let me see real quick if I got any questions. I think I have something coming in here. All right. Cheryl River just said, Kevin just said he hates vegetables. Hey, I've got to be real about it. It doesn't mean that I won't ever eat them, but I got to be very creative with how I eat them. So that reminds me, we'll talk about like how we do that with pizza later. And that's about it right now. All right, you guys, so let's move on. 5 foods to help you build muscle fast. These are 5 of the things, or 5 of the foods that I've used over the past 12 months that helped me build 15 pounds of muscle. And yes, I did that in my late 40s when we're not supposed to really be able, we don't have the testosterone supposedly, we don't have the growth hormone that we need to do that. And I'm telling you, you know, we need to stop like blindly adopting that or allowing that to become a narrative that goes on that we start to perceive as, I cannot become stronger, I can't build muscle, I can't be more athletic, I can't do the things I want to do because I'm older now, or I don't have the testosterone or the growth hormone, or, you know, all of these other things. You know, it's really just understanding that we can always improve these things. We just have to be smarter about how we do them as we get older. We cannot do things that we did when we were 18 years old or in our 20s, you know, and get away with all of that stuff when we're in our 30s, 40s, or 50s or beyond, right? We just have to be a little bit smarter, but that doesn't mean things are impossible for us either. Okay, so number 4, let's talk about kind of the other elephant in the room, carbohydrates, right? Everybody's afraid to eat carbohydrates. You know, everybody's wanting to go low carb, especially if you struggle with body fat. And I'm going to tell you that, you know, if building muscle and building strength is one of your goals, you've got to get carbohydrates in your body, because carbohydrates are the thing that has the biggest effect on triggering insulin. And insulin's the hormone that helps us build muscle. So if we don't eat enough carbohydrates, or we're not having the right types of them, you're going to struggle to build muscle no matter what. Now, that doesn't mean it's a free-for-all in that, you know, we can just kick back on the couch, watch Netflix, and crush a bag of Doritos, and we're just going to magically build muscle, right? You know, and a lot of it has to do with the type. There is a lot that has to do with the timing as well, especially as we get older. But we definitely got to be getting some carbohydrates in. So some of the things like, you know, about carbohydrates, you know, timing and all that stuff, types that we eat are very important. A lot of times we're afraid to eat carbohydrates at night. And I think that's one of the big things. It's one of the big changes I've had. I've you know, been able to eat them in the morning. I've been eating them at night as well. So one of the things that when you eat them at night, it actually kind of helps the whole process, because, you know, if you are somebody who struggles with getting enough like good quality sleep, if you toss and turn, or you get to bed late, or you wake up in the morning and just feel like, you know, you're not sleeping well, you're waking up tired, you need a pot of coffee to wake up. Like I used to be there. I used to be that guy that needed a whole pot of coffee to wake up. I used to be that guy that woke up and I was just dead tired, felt like I wrestled a bear every night. I was the guy who'd wake up between 1 and 3 a.m. in the morning with a million things going through my head, and I could not sleep. And that was during the times where I was really focused on trying to be like low carb, particularly at night. So one of the things that, you know, when we eat carbohydrates at night, it actually will help to improve the production of serotonin, which will help you to actually be able to sleep. So, and it also kind of balances out the nervous system as well. You know, if you have a lot of kind of, you're on the go a lot, you deal with a lot of stress, you know, you're working long hours, 10, 12, 14 hours a day, you know, constantly go, work. Carbohydrates are actually one of your best friends, because they help to kind of offset that whole fight or flight branch of the nervous system that we're in all day long and shut it down. Because the more we're in that part of the nervous system, the more catabolic it becomes, meaning that we start to burn more energy from protein and from protein and muscle. We start breaking down and burning basically muscle fuel. So it makes it a lot harder and sometimes impossible to be building muscle if we don't have enough carbs, because that helps to kind of balance that nervous system out and helps us to build muscle. All right, so let's see. Welcome into Drea. What's going on? Thanks for joining. So let's move right along, you guys. One more that I'm going to look at, and that is going to be talking about cheat meals, right? And, you know, go figure, how are cheat meals going to help you build muscle? They actually can, and they do. And, you know, for one of the reasons is because they actually can help, you know, when you have flexibility in your nutrition plan, in your diet, it helps you to stick with it when you have to be a little bit more structured, right? That's one of the big benefits with it. If we try to be perfect all the time, we're trying to be complete 100% nutritionally compliant, after a period of time, it's very, very difficult and it just sucks. It's boring. It becomes overwhelming. It becomes a drag. And a lot of times it becomes a source of stress for us. You know, when you think, oh my God, like, you know, when is this going to be over? You know, I don't get to eat anything that I enjoy. I had to stop eating this and eating that. And it becomes more stressful for us and we don't enjoy it. And when we get stressed out about things and we don't enjoy things, we don't do them any longer than we have to. That's why for most people, diets don't work, because they ask you to do a lot of things that either are too much or they're things that you don't enjoy. So, you know, that's why like a lot of people will yo-yo up and down when they do different diets, or they can't seem motivated to stick with diets, right? If that rings a bell with you, give me a heart or a like and let me know. I know I've struggled with that a lot myself. So, you know, homemade cheat meals, right? You know, this is kind of like the balance in between, right? So rather than just, you know, I used to eat out a lot. Like I would be eating out 4, maybe sometimes 5 times a week, no joke. I had a lot of trouble controlling food cravings, junk food. I do struggle with that now, but it's nowhere near what it used to be. So kind of one of the middle ground things that I've been doing is doing more like homemade type cheat meals, because now I can get the benefits of eating the things that I really love to eat and I enjoy them. But at the same time, I know what goes in them, you know, so I can make them a little bit more quote unquote healthy, and build them in a way or create them in a way that will support me still being able to achieve my goals. I want to get stronger. I want to build muscle, right? I want to have that. So it doesn't have to be a total loss if I eat a junk meal or 2 during the week. So, you know, some of the homemade things like, you know, Cheryl and I have created, if you followed our pictures that we post and everything on Facebook and Instagram, and we do like pizzas, right? We came up with like this recipe to make pizza, and now like that's one of our favorite things to make. We call it our pizza baby, right? So we have like 10 different kinds of these that we've created, which is cool because it gives us variety. We can pick one that we want. You know, one of the ones that we did, like the original one, is like we loaded up with, you know, we got some pepperoni on there, we'll put some sausage on there, like the things that we want, but we'll also put a good amount of veggies on there, so and herbs on there. So we're putting, you know, onions on there, we're putting mushrooms on there, we're throwing in like fresh oregano and basil on there, right? So there's just ways that you can do that and make it a little bit more like balanced, right? Eat the foods that you still enjoy. Now, we don't eat the pizza every single night, right? There has to be some structure in there, but there is a way to do that. You know, we do the same thing with like Mexican food. You know, I love Mexican food, but again, if I go out and eat it all the time, there's like all kinds of hidden stuff in there, right? So I'm like getting a lot more maybe things in it that I don't really want to eat, or just way more, you know, and I don't like to say the word calories because I don't really count calories, but there can be a lot of excess. Portion sizes, everything can be like crazy when you eat out. You know, look at the average portion sizes now. At some places, they look like you're getting party platters for just like a dish that you order, you know. So portion sizes, all this stuff has been going crazy. But like for Mexican food, you know, we'll make like carnitas, we'll make burritos, enchiladas, you know, we do all this kinds of stuff. You know, we make our own rice. So we make like a really good Mexican rice. Tastes like, you know, just almost about as good as I've found around the Mexican restaurants. And I've eaten at a lot of them out here. And I've eaten at a lot of them everywhere I've lived. You know, I really love Mexican food. We did refried beans. I think I've got some left over. And check this out. I got some chicken. So this is like really cool stuff. We did refried beans without like adding any lard. I don't know if you can even see that. It's not too pretty. It's been in the fridge. But I mean, the consistency is just like refried beans. No lard in it or anything. Just taking like whole pinto beans, mashing them up, you know, and keeping enough kind of liquid in there so they don't like get really hard, but they're not like super runny. They work really, really well. got like a chicken, what we call a chicken tinga, right? So it's basically shredded chicken breast. Cook our own chicken breast, shred it up, and then put it with like crushed tomatoes, onion, salt, pepper. There's chipotle peppers in adobo, and just like mixing all that up and some garlic and blending it, throwing it in a pot and cooking it. So, you know, we can like wrap these things up. You know, I'll wrap it in a flour tortilla because, you know, I like flour tortillas more than I do corn. But again, it's a way to get like, you know, have a cheat meal or some quote unquote junk food without completely like going, you know, over the boat and ordering something from a restaurant that really doesn't have any good nutrition in there. It's kind of like just, you know, a bunch of like empty calories in there. So that's the way to do it. We've done like Korean, we do a lot of Korean kind of dishes. We make like our own spicy Korean chicken wings. So yeah, you know, we'll fry them up and everything like that. But again, you know, it's better than the alternative going to, you know, KFC or something like that, which even though at time to time I'm prone to doing myself anyway. But anyway, so hopefully that makes some sense and helps you out. So it's really, you know, getting a good variety of carbohydrates, finding creative ways to get veggies in your dishes, you know, including fats. Do not be afraid to eat fat. Yeah, you don't want to eat like 80% of your diet probably from it, but definitely don't be afraid to include it. You know, dark meats, chicken, not being afraid to eat. If you like fish, fatty fish, if you like red meat, you know, don't be afraid to eat like a ribeye or a New York strip steak or something like that. Also, you know, the timing and the types of carbohydrates, making sure that you're getting enough carbohydrates in because you're not going to build muscle without it. And then, you know, having some homemade cheat meals in there. So those are the 5 kind of staples that I've really been just using a lot. And I'm telling you that the results in the past 12 months plus have been outstanding. 15 pounds of muscle in that time at an age where, you know, supposedly, you know, we shouldn't be able to do that. But you can see there's always ways that we can do things. We just have to be smarter and be more dialed in. All right, so that is about it on that. I'm going to give it just a minute. If you guys have questions, let me know. Type them in now. James, what's going on? Welcome. And in the meantime, I announced this yesterday, so I'm looking for, I've been testing out a program, and I've been using this really the past 12 months or so as well, in conjunction with doing the whole nutrition thing that I've been working on and what I shared with you. But I've been testing and tweaking this out, and it's just basically a way that I put, you know, workouts together and put a whole program together to build muscle. So if you are somebody who is interested, even in the slightest bit, of building between 5 to 7 pounds of lean muscle in the next 60 days and bulletproofing your body, meaning that you build stronger areas like shoulders, lower back, knees. So we do it in a way that doesn't beat up your body, that doesn't get you injured or put you in pain, and actually makes you stronger, will strengthen your joints, your tendons, and your ligaments up. And we're doing that in 60 days. So I'm looking for 5 people over the age of 40 to test this out, help me kind of tweak it a little bit, work out any of the kinks that might be in there, and get great results. So I'm going to be offering this to the first 5 people who tell me, hey, look, I'm interested in this, I want in, and I'm going to take 5 people in. I'm going to offer a gigantic discount to do this. So I'm still, you know, working on some of the kinks in there, and I want to make sure it's all dialed in. So that's why I'm just going to offer it at a gigantic discount for the people who are interested in it. So if that's you, let me know. You can private message me or just leave in the comment below. Tell me more. Just put that, and then I will message you the details. But I'm going to give it until this Sunday. So this Sunday is going to be the final day to basically let me know if you want in, all right? So if that sounds good, let me know. And other than that, I'm going to take off for now. I'm going to check real quick if I have any questions. And if not, that's going to be it for today, you guys. So I want to thank you for tuning in. And I will be back tomorrow, and topic to be announced. Probably be doing it at the same time around noon, all right? So, all right, you guys, I'm going to take off. Have an awesome day, and I will be back, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.